I couldn't find any American friends to do the Wednesday night before Thanksgiving podcast, so I turned to my favorite Canadian, Fred Zinkie, who joins us next on the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by Circus Sports and Splash Sports. I'm Jeff Erickson here with Fred Zinkie. It is Drinksgiving, or Thanksgiving Eve, if you will, and here in the States. Fred is up in Canada, though, and he's playing hurt, so we appreciate him doing that. Fred, welcome to the pod. How are you?
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm a little jealous of all my American friends who get this amazing American Thanksgiving weekend. I don't know much about this Drinksgiving, so is this like a new American tradition where now you drink a lot the day before Thanksgiving?
I think it's always been a thing, like college kids come home from school and they get together with their high school friends and go drinking, basically, or adults that go drinking all the time.
I get it.
Yeah. As if we need an excuse, but it is the one that is given at times. So anywho, so we are in a league together. We are in the Flex Expert League, Superflex League. It drafted, I think, at 4 a.m. my time. No, it's only 6 a.m.
Something like that. Yeah,
it was really stupid early. And I was drafting on the wheel in a Superflex League, so I got locked out of all the top quarterbacks. You did not. You were drafting second. You're here to try to dethrone Michael Florio from the NFL Network. Michael's won the last 2 years. We gotta end this madness, and right now you're in first place.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a long way to go, but yeah, I managed to start off with Josh Allen, and that's turned out pretty good. And AJ Brown's had a pretty good season. I picked him up. TJ Hawkinson's had a good season. I don't know, that team. Even Devontae Adams hasn't been good at times this season, but has had some good weeks. Good enough in a deeper league like that. Travis Etienne.
Rashad White at 8-11 has worked out very well for you. That's when Cortland Sutton now is paying dividends too. It was frustrating for a while.
Cortland Sutton has paid a lot of dividends on my bench. I almost never use them in that league. I have Brown and Adams. I play them pretty much. AJ Brown and Devontae Adams, and then I have Marquise Brown. Sometimes I start him, and I've started Tyler Boyd at times because of the injury to T. Higgins. So Cortland Sutton scored a handful of touchdowns on my bench this year, but I've got him, and I don't even have him in my lineup this week. We'll see if I change my mind, but Browns have a good defense. I don't have him in my lineup this week either.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Well, there you go.
We were talking before we came on that for you picking late, I think you made 2 solid quarterback picks with Kirk Cousins and Daniel Jones. They didn't work out. Cousins was going to work out. Jones.
Yeah, it was working out famously. Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, Jones was a bit of a boomer bust option, the rushing, but then maybe not a great quarterback.
But you got Goff in the same round, like 10 picks later. So that was
in these Superflex leagues, if you nail your quarterbacks, like you're in really good shape. And I got Allen and Goff. And then yours didn't turn out as well. So who are in your quarterback spots right now?
So I drafted Kirk Cousins and Daniel Jones. I did draft Baker Mayfield in the 11th round as a third quarterback.
He's turned out really well this year.
1 pick after CJ Stroud. What might have been. But Mayfield's worked out.
But without a doubt. Solid. Absolutely. For where he's been drafted, I have him in several Superflex teams.
Yep. I'm starting Tommy DeVito in the other spot right now. It's sad. I think for a while I was starting. Well, I mean, for a while it was Jones, and then I think it was Jones and Mayfield, and I think I faked it 1 week. Maybe there was another like a 1 week guy. I forget who I did, but nonetheless, it's not fun to be scrambling for a quarter sharks in a Superflex league because everybody that becomes viable gets picked up except for Tim Boyle. Nobody's picked up Tim Boyle. He's just hovering like an angel. We went through our fab run. Nobody wants him.
No, and I didn't want him. I picked up Jake Browning and paid a little bit for that. And I already have Kenny Pickett, who's pretty terrible, but at least he's a quarterback. Have you ever thought at any point of not using a quarterback in that Superflex spot?
I think I did at one week for sure.
I've had the odd week in Superflex leagues this year where I haven't used a quarterback in those spots, but mostly I try to get one in, even if it's someone like DeVito.
Yeah.
They can just get to 10 or 12 points so fast. If they're not absolutely terrible, if they can get 1 touchdown, right? Like they can get to 10 points pretty quickly. 150 yards even and a touchdown. Maybe they run a little bit. Like it's just so easy for the quarterbacks to get you at least 10 that I try to use them, even if I will use Kenny Pickett in this league if I have to at some point. Hopefully that never happens. I will not dethrone Michael Florio probably if I have to go to Kenny Pickett. Although maybe all their problems are solved in Pittsburgh now. Matt Canada's out. Maybe
Maybe.
I don't think that's the only problem.
No, I don't think so. So one of the things that struck me about this league is how draft position sets your strategy in Superflex leagues. If you don't, if you're drafting early, with one exception, I think most people took an elite quarterback early on. In the first 7 picks, 6 quarterbacks went. 7, and then we saw 8 out of the top 11 picks were quarterbacks. I'm sitting there on the wheel at 12, excuse me. And, it kind of was decided for me. I didn't want to push up Dak to that wheel pick. Maybe I was right. Maybe I was wrong. For first 6 weeks of the season, I was right about that. Now I seem like I might be wrong. But Watson didn't pay off. Richardson didn't pay off. Tua did. That was your answer. Other answer there.
Yeah.
But yeah, as opposed to, I think there's more strategy available to you in like a one quarterback league, ironically enough. In a Superflex league, you're kind of locked into the elite quarterback early on.
It's true, although I only play in Superflex leagues, and I have 10 Superflex leagues this year. Yeah, and I have 10 Superflex leagues this year, and I do have some where I picked late and started wide receiver, and then went cheap at quarterback. And some of those teams are doing well. Like maybe you started like Hill and Diggs or Hill and Chase or something like that. And then later on just started messing around with guys like Baker Mayfield. And I got Sam Howell in some of them. He's turned out well. Stroud in some of them. But
Purdy would be a great answer there. I mean, there were right answers.
Purdy. Yes. So instead of even trying to make up for the guy who got Jalen Hurts, I've just started in those leagues with two great wide receivers, or maybe wide receiver running back, although that didn't work out as well. The 2 great wide receivers is where I found, at least so far this year, if I had a late pick, that's where I did better. 2 good wide receivers, and then don't even look at quarterback even on the next turn, and then just go cheap at quarterback and maybe get 3, and then work the waiver wire, right? Try to get anyone in your lineup and hope that those 2 great wide receivers carry you. Like now, say on a team where I have Hill and Chase, I don't know if Chase will keep carrying me now. We'll see. Right. Because he's so tied to Joe Burrow. But so far, that team's been okay, just basically on the strength of those 2 players and then like some cheap quarterbacks.
Exactly. So I went differently. I went McCaffrey and Kelsey at the wheel.
That's good too. Yeah.
And that worked out pretty. I mean, other than week 1 with Kelsey and maybe, the couple, like the Germany game was pretty bad. But for the most part, I'm not unhappy with that. McCaffrey, obviously, I'm happy with.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. And then, like you said, the Cousins pick was going to work. It's just bad luck. He's not even a quarterback who plays like a risky style or anything. It was just unlucky. So I think if he had stayed healthy, well, your team could still do really well. But I think if he had stayed healthy, like you'd be in pretty good shape right now with what you have.
And I mistakenly thought Daniel Jones was relatively stable, that he was kind of made. Got his contract, that Dable's really figured him out. It'd be fine. And it wasn't, obviously. And then he got hurt, big time there. So that was a killer. But I think at one point that is driven home though is finding that second quarterback matters so much in Superflex. You have Goff, and you're just, he wasn't great last week, but you love having him as your QB2.
That's right. One of the things I like about Superflex leagues is the talent assessment at quarterback. Like if you nailed that CJ Stroud was actually going to be a really good NFL quarterback right away, right? Like you profited off that. If you nailed that Baker Mayfield wasn't done, and that maybe the drop from Tom Brady to Baker Mayfield actually wasn't that extreme, and he could be a solid fantasy quarterback and keep the Bucs, like I'd argue the Bucs aren't really any worse than last year. Definitely not much worse than last year on offense.
Right.
So what I really like about Superflex is instead of just the stars at quarterback, like you are really assessing the quarterbacks from around the league. And like you said, like we got Daniel Jones wrong, and a lot of us did in a lot of leagues. If you got Brock Purdy right, if you got Sam Howell right, instead of Mac Jones, instead of Daniel Jones, so I like
instead of Ryan Tannehill. Yeah,
that's right. And I like the aspect of and that really is assessing quarterback talent. Like all these quarterbacks are going to get to play instead of Kenny Pickett. There's another one who was going late and hasn't done well. So Like with the quarterback, it's not even really about opportunity. Like it's not like we're talking about a receiver and how many targets he gets, or a ball carrier, or a rusher, and how many carries he gets. Like the quarterback's going to play. It's is he, is he good? The people who believe Stroud was better than Bryce Young have profited off that. So good for them. And I like how we're assessing talent. I just think that's a fun way for your fantasy leagues to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you believe, sometimes the preseason matters a little bit. If you watch the preseason and watch the Carolina Panthers when Bryce Young was in there, you saw how desperate of a situation was, how bad the offensive line was, and how much he was affected by it.
Yep. No, that's absolutely true. And they don't have a lot of weapons. His life is really hard. The jury's, obviously still out on him, but and maybe he's not good, but he's not getting any help right now.
Yeah, that's right. He is not. Although I will say, it's funny. The game Andy Dalton started in Seattle, that offense was a lot more functional.
No, it's true. It's true. I mean, Andy Dalton could probably squeeze a couple, maybe one more win, 2 more wins out of that team this year. It's obviously not worth it for them in the long run, even without the first round pick. Like to squeeze another win or two with Andy Dalton, like isn't gonna get them anywhere. They need to develop Bryce Young, but yeah, that's a real kick in the pants for them though, to not have their first round pick in a year that they could possibly finish last.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll say that, it's just, it's interesting. I will say this also too, I makes me wonder why the Jets didn't try harder to go get like Andy Dalton as their quarterback. Because when you could see that it just wasn't working out, right? It wasn't working out at all for Zach Wilson. Why did they still had a chance? They just didn't do anything with it there.
So I looked at that. Actually, I was looking at Zach Wilson recently in a conversation with a friend, and one of the things that's so important is timing. And remember, he had that game against Denver where he was kind of okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember people coming out of that game where we're like, oh, maybe Zach Wilson's kind of figuring it out. And they won. And they won, and he was kind of okay. And then the next week, they beat the Eagles. And he was not okay. He wasn't good in the Eagles game, but the Eagles are really good. And they beat the Eagles with him at quarterback. And those 2 games were not right before, but close to right before the deadline. And I forget who they beat the next week, but the next week he wasn't very good. And I think they grinded out a win against the Giants. So going into the trade,
grind is the word for sure too.
Exactly. So going into the trade deadline, because it's all timing, like going into the trade deadline, Zach Wilson had won 3 games in a row. So, it's easy to look back now and say, why didn't you guys trade for Josh Dobbs? And maybe they should have. But at the time, they picked him so high, and maybe they're just trying to rationalize, like, hey, we've won 3 in a row with this guy, and he was good against the Broncos. And then he beat the Eagles, who are awesome team. And, he's not going to look great against the Eagles, but he got through it. And I don't know. It's so much of its timing. And then all of a sudden the trade deadline passed, and it was just 3 total duds. One after another.
There was the Hail Mary play where Ty Conklin knocked it away from Garrett Wilson, as Chad pointed out too.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
But when you're relying on a Hail Mary to win the game, I mean, it kind of
But I do think one of the takeaways of this season in the real NFL will be the importance of trying to secure a stable backup quarterback. And these veterans,
and they're not growing on trees. There's not a whole lot of them either. Not everybody can have a good backup quarterback. So that's also part of the problem. And also, I got to say, like the Rodgers synopsis probably worked against him. Remember, like, oh, he's throwing. He's looking great. He might come back sooner. Some people are talking, I watch the Pat Mayo podcast every week, him with Jeff Feinberg and Tim Anderson, and talking about how Tim is a big Jets fan. He's like, well, he's going to come back for the Black Friday game. Okay, maybe it's after that. Well, now they're still relying on that. And maybe the Jets themselves kind of held back, thinking, well, we're going to get Rodgers back soon anyhow. We'll make do until then. And it's just longer. It's going back to the original prognosis almost. Although now he's talking about maybe practicing in 2 weeks. We'll see about that. I don't know, but anywho, I think that also worked against them a little bit. So. Anyways, that's a perfect segue into talking about quarterbacks for this week. But first, before we do that, we're on the Blue Wire Network. Here are their ads. Thank you, everybody, for your indulgence with that. We appreciate being on the Blue Wire Network. Their studios in Vegas are still amazing. Let's talk quarterbacks for this week, Fred. an interesting week. First of all, there's a lot of changeover again this week. We talked about Browning and Burrow. Where like how are you utterly burying Browning this week, or is there some hope that he could be handy for you in a Superflex league?
I mean, I think that hardly anyone will have to start him this week because of the 0 buys, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think most people, like I picked him up. Well, we'll see when some of my bid groups go through in some of my FFPC leagues, but I'm going to end up with him on a handful of teams, but I won't start him anywhere this week. Like I think against the Steelers, I have a lot of respect for the Steelers defense. I know it's not maybe the best in the league, but it's a good defense. So, I think he's almost a desperation play this week, but going forward, like if he can even show okay, like when we have buys the next 2 weeks, especially next week, which is a really tough week for buys, I think he could get into a handful of lineups. So I think he could be a like like a good QB3, maybe bad like low end QB2. Like why couldn't he be as good as say Derek Carr or something like that the rest of the way for fantasy?
Right. I could see it too. I mean, well, he's stepping into a good situation, especially if and when Higgins returns. Doesn't look like that's going to happen this week, by the way. Didn't practice today, so we'll see about that. But you got Chase, you got Mixon, you have a pretty good offensive line. You've got great play callers, I think. But can he deliver the ball? Tyler Boyd's a good third receiver. One drop against Houston, notwithstanding. Over his career, he's been a good receiver. So I mean, he has plenty of good, there are worse situations to step into, that's for sure. But yeah, I could see it, but you're right there's no buys, but that kind of detracts from him. But I've got him at 26 this week, behind Geno Smith and Pickett, who you mentioned, and Levis, but ahead of Bryce Young. Maybe that's a mistake actually at Tennessee. I could be wrong about that. Ahead of Aiden O'Connell, ahead of Mac Jones or whoever the New England quarterback's going to be, ahead of DTR. Ahead of DeVito, and God knows ahead of Tim Boyle. He have the 1 touchdown and 13 interceptions in his last college year.
I think all of that makes sense. I wouldn't put him. Can't see anyone else who I would probably put him ahead of for this week. I think the Bryce Young one's tricky. I think I would put him ahead of Bryce Young this week. That one's tight. That one's tight. Like that Bengals Steelers game could be, a 16-13 game.
Could be.
So just like the Browns Steelers game last week, I think the Steelers are going to play a lot of those games the rest of the way.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Exactly.
The odds makers agree with you. I think the total is 34 in that game, or 34.5. So there you go. Yeah. Question from Chad. Do you think Bailey Zappe is strong enough to take a chance? When I see Bailey Zappe, I see that Spider-Man gif it's going around, the 2 Spider-Mans. Right. I think he is Mac Jones. I don't think there's any difference.
Yeah, as desperate. He and Mac Jones are kind of in Tim Boyle territory for me, where I think even in a super flex, depends, I guess, where my team's at, but I might even rather just play another wide receiver or running back. And I already said, I'll try to get a quarterback in anytime I can, but I don't know. I don't see me, especially with their lack of weapons too.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, agreed. Absolutely agree with you on that one there. Other quarterbacks, Desmond. Can I interest you in a Desmond Ridder reclaiming his starting job in Atlanta going against the Saints?
Nope. Will I take him over? Will I take him over Jake Browning for this week? Maybe. Okay, so I'll take Desmond Ridder over Jake Browning this week, but maybe rest of season I would rather have Browning because I really just don't see Ridder as having much upside at all. This week I just don't really want Browning for that game against the Steelers, but there's going to be some weeks I think going forward where I would rather have someone like Browning.
Yeah.
But I really think Ridder lives when you're doing your rankings the rest of the season, like he kind of lives where Browning lives, like in the early 20s.
Yeah.
Early 20s once there's buys, maybe mid 20s, when all the teams are off buys. But I don't really see, I was kind of disappointed that they didn't give Heineke another start.
Well, he's got a bad hammy. He's not even practicing this week.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But the fact is they did, but your point still stands though, because they said they're committing to Ridder for the rest of the season.
They did. Yeah. Like it's like Heineke was just there to give him a break. I get it too, that like they want to figure out what's going on with Ridder. Like, do they actually have something here?
Yeah.
Or
so
not?
I promise you, I'm not going to just talk about the bottom third quarterbacks in the NFL here.
They're the interesting ones. So
yeah, Kyler Murray in his first, is now back. He's played 2 games. Do you like what you've seen from him so far?
I like it enough. Like, I think he's like like right on the bubble QB1, QB2 type guy. I've seen some people having him more in the top 10. I think I'm probably a little lower than that, more like
Mhm.
12, 13 or so for this
I've
week.
got him exactly at 12, so I'm right there with
Yeah,
you.
I think that's kind of where I'd have him. I've seen some people put him ahead of guys like Fields and Lawrence. I would rather have them for this week.
Mhm.
Um, but I like Kyler Murray, say, more than Sam Howell against a good Dallas defense this week. Um, I think I like him more than Tua this week. The Jets are a really good pass defense, right? So
Yeah.
I think I might like I said, I have him kind of right around there, around 12. And I think in general in football, he's one of the most fascinating players to watch for the rest of the season. Cause again, another team that has to evaluate their quarterback over the next handful of weeks and decide going into the offseason, like, is he their guy or not?
Right. Right. It's a tough spot to be in there,
Yeah.
so I agree. One more quarterback, and we'll move on to the other position, and that is Trevor Lawrence. Finally had his big fantasy game. Two rushing touchdowns didn't help, but he was just good all around. Calvin Ridley was unlocked.
Yep.
Is this sustainable, or is this just Tennessee's really bad?
I think it's somewhat sustainable. Like I think that if you go back and look at their box scores from earlier in the season, that Travis Etienne was getting an unusual amount of rushing touchdowns. Like they're just having a lot of drives end with Etienne scoring a rushing touchdown.
Yeah.
And that stuff is going to even out. And it has started to even out in the last couple weeks. I mean, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't even out over a season. It evens out the next season or something. But I think all the advanced metrics that would say how many touchdowns a quarterback should have based on all the advanced stats or a running back should have, they were all saying that maybe 3 weeks ago that Etienne was over. He had 2 or 3 more touchdowns than he probably should have. And
Kind of like
Lawrence,
Mostert earlier in the season. Same thing.
exactly. And
Yep.
Lawrence should have had those touchdowns. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think Lawrence, like I don't think he's going to be a top 5 or 6 QB the rest of the way. He could be. I don't think he will be, but like I think the potential's there. Like that's a good offense and a good team.
Mhm.
So, but I think he's a QB1. I was in a friend of mine that I helped run his team in a non-super flex where he was dropped, and I thought that was pretty foolish. Like I think Trevor Lawrence is too good to drop, even in a one quarterback league. And this was a week ago before his big game.
Chad sneaking in one more desperation quarterback question.
I like
If
it.
Geno can't make it tomorrow, would Drew Lock be in front or behind Browning? For me, it's behind because pacing the
Behind.
Niners. He looked
Yeah,
terrible.
behind, because I think if Drew Lock starts tomorrow, I don't feel good about my Seahawks. Like just in general, like I don't
Your
feel good.
Seahawks?
No,
I
no,
never
not my.
knew this
No, no,
about you, man.
I'm not sorry. I'm not talking fandom. I mean my other Seahawks
Oh, your
players on
Seahawks
my
players.
my
Yes.
DK Metcalf shares, my Zach Charbonnet
Yeah.
shares, right?
Well,
Like
I'm already not that optimistic about him, but you're right. With Locke, abandon all hope, ye who enter here.
yeah.
He looks so bad about that there. Um, Before we move on to running backs, quick note from our friends at Circa. Get ready for the ultimate big game parties at Circa Resort and Casino. Super Sunday is in Las Vegas this year. Watch the big game poolside at Stadium Swim's big game viewing party. Massive screen, booming game sound, and a view of the pyrotechnic and visual effects throughout the game. Snag the best seat in the sun with daybeds, poolside boxes, cabanas, and more. Or touchdown at the world's largest sports book, Circa Sports, for the big game bash. 3 stories of football glory featuring a 78 million pixel screen. Book your seat with a variety of reservation options, including bottle service, open bar, stadium style food, and more. Don't miss these legendary viewing experiences on February 11th. The big game parties only at Circa Resort and Casino. Reserve today at circalasvegas.com. I'm here with Fred Zinkie from Yahoo Fantasy Sports. You can catch Fred on Twitter at Fred Zinkie MLB. Fred is also a good football analyst too, not just my baseball co-host during baseball season as well. Let's talk running backs here. We have everybody at our disposal. One of the topics that came up on the show, the Sirius XM show tonight, is how low I am on Jonathan Taylor. I've got him at 22 this week, Fred. Heresy, tomfoolery. It's just there's a lot of better running back matchups this week. That's where I'm at on this one here.
Yeah, but 22, that is, how do you get that low to 22?
Okay, so let's do it this way. Brian Robinson or Jonathan Taylor this week?
Oh, Jonathan Taylor.
Okay, so Brian Robinson's like a pass catching
He's been
machine
really
the
good.
last 2
Yeah,
weeks.
I know. I'm not totally buying it. You're right. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Jonathan Taylor's just got a lot of carries the last few weeks. He has not caught many passes. They haven't really involved. You're right. They haven't involved him in the passing game. I'm seeing people though rank Jonathan Taylor as a top 2 running back for this week.
Top 2, like as in 1 or 2.
Yeah, I'm seeing him that high at some places.
Interesting.
Yeah,
he didn't run that well in the New England game.
No,
I just
3 yards a
and
carry,
they don't
but
throw
lots of carries. But they have gone to the point where he is back to getting all of their carries.
That's true. Zach Moss has kind of just disappeared out of it here. So yeah, I mean, I'll give you that. I might have to bump him up a little bit there, but we'll see about that one there. So
I wouldn't have, just for the record, I wouldn't have him in my top, I don't know, 10, 8, 10. I think he's more like, more around 12 or something like that, 11 or 12 for this week, but much higher than you have him.
Yeah, fair enough. And I'm doing an update tonight, so we'll see about that one.
Yeah.
Breece Hall, really struggling on the ground, but is active in the passing game. I've got him at 16 this week against Miami on Black Friday. What do you say?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I could probably put him maybe a little higher than that just because he's so good. I struggle. I have no Breece Hall shares. And then that offense is just so bad that every week I want to rank him low. But then a lot of weeks he overcomes their bad offense and he makes their only big play of the game. And then, ends up being a good fantasy asset for the week. So, I do have to probably respect his talent and put him a little higher than I would otherwise want to. But man, I just feel like going into any, like if the Jets got shut out this week, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. That's the thing. I would be a little surprised, but it is Tim Boyle. So, I mean,
that's what I mean.
I actually think this is a downgrade from Zach Wilson. I think I am less optimistic about my Jets, especially about Garrett Wilson, who I have way too much. Tim Boyle is just, he's really bad.
Yeah.
I don't see how you go in. I mean, Trevor Siemian must look really terrible in practice to not be an option. The whole Tim Boyle at least has played under Hackett thing just doesn't resonate with me. I mean, first of all, Hackett, what? Yeah, I don't know. Just the Jets are like cronyism going wrong. I mean, they get Rodgers and they bring in Hackett. They bring in Alan Lazard as their number 2 wide receiver. They bring in Randall Cobb. They let go. They trade away Elijah Moore. They got worse. They got worse. I don't know.
Yep. I know. I totally agree. But again, Hall's talent is such that he overcomes all of those problems. Once a game and gets this massive touchdown or
He's awesome.
Of that nature. And
I just wish he'd had the keys to a good offense.
Well, he might next year. We'll see.
I love Hall in Dynasty. I love him in keeper leagues. But
yeah, for sure. But I think I would probably have him a little lower than some other people would. Like I would probably rather, I don't know, I was going to say I'd rather use Bijan Robinson this week. I probably would. I think just
I'm low on Bijan too. There's more heresy coming up here in a second, but go ahead.
I'm just so pessimistic on the Jets' ability to score on Friday.
I've got Bijan at 19. He got more usage in the game before the bye week, but they're still not giving him a whole lot inside at the goal line. The offense isn't any better. That's part of my problem. Is it's just not that good of an offense. And the Saints actually are a credible defense.
Absolutely. Yep.
Like I've got Isaiah Pacheco ahead of these guys this week. I think the Raiders are exploitable on the ground. I think Pacheco's going to get his share of work.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yep. I think they're all in the same tier for sure. Yep. Like there's a really good chance that the Chiefs score 30 this week. Right against the Raiders. And there's a really good chance that the Jets score less than 10 and that the Falcons score, who knows, 15, something like that.
This screams 1917, I'm watch it be like
the Saints Falcons game for sure. Yeah. Screams 1917.
That's what I mean. That's the game I was talking to. 1917.
And the Jets won't even get to either of those 2 point totals, but the Chiefs will probably get to 30.
Yeah.
Against the Raiders.
Well, I think Colts Bucks could be a shootout, but I don't think it'll be the running game. I think it'll be the passing game. People don't run against the Bucks. They pass against the Bucks. That's how you beat them. Especially with their key injuries in the secondary. That's why I'm just not as big on Taylor, but
for sure. Although Taylor, if it is a shootout, like he could still, even if they don't run well, he could still score.
I mean, he could take a screen pass 75 yards. That could still happen.
Or they could throw their way down the field and he could run one in from the 2.
I'm going to move Taylor up on my rankings. I'm just going to I'm going to promise that right now. I'm going to raise my left hand and say, because I'm left-handed, so I'm going to swear that I'll move him up. On the Thursday matchups, here's What are you doing with the Detroit running backs? They're both good. And Green Bay gives up the run.
Start them both.
Start them both. They're both in my top 10.
Yeah, I could see that. I might have Montgomery a little outside my top 10, but that's it. Like I like them both better than all of the guys we've talked about so far.
Yeah, I agree, and I have them ranked accordingly there.
Yeah.
Delagizi has a question here, except it's sitting. It's a cross position, so it's tougher to do it. And usually I try to do questions at the end of the thing here, but sitting one, Zach, Breece, or Ridley. I'm trying to figure out which Zach that is. Bear with me on that. Charbonnet, I guess that would be. So Charbonnet getting the start tomorrow.
Yeah.
With Ken Walker doubtful, probably not going to play. I'm going Breece and Ridley over Charbonnet there.
Yeah, same here. Yeah. I just don't know what we're going to get from the Seahawks. Like, it so much depends on the health of Geno. And like, if he doesn't play, I don't want Charbonnet. I'll use him in certain situations. I have him in a league where like I just need a running back, but I don't really want Charbonnet in my lineup if Drew Lock starts. And then if Smith starts, I'm actually worried about his ability to finish the game.
Exactly. I was just going to say the most likely scenario is he starts and doesn't finish.
Yeah.
Seattle's a better. I think they got better talent than the way they finish games. They're so frustrating to watch. They blew that game against the Rams. They had no business losing that game.
I have no feel for that. Of all the games this week, I have no feel for that game. Like, I feel like that game's close. It's a division game. Seattle they're not great, but they're pretty good. Like, it's in Seattle. Like, I feel like that game's close. But then when I look at it on paper with Geno banged up, Kenneth Walker's out, I see the scenario for the 49ers to actually just come in and roll them. And the 49ers are healthier now than they've been in a while and looked really good last week. I see a scenario where the 49ers come in and just win that game like 27-10, but I don't know. I don't know. I feel like Seattle will play them close, but I don't like the idea of starting really any Seahawks this week.
Yeah, I think if you have Metcalf, you're starting him because
I am starting him where I have him. I just don't feel great about it.
I don't feel great about that. I don't feel great about Lockett. But I'm going to do it anyhow. In some cases, I just don't have a choice. I mean, I guess I do have a choice. Like, I don't like Mostert against the Jets, but I might. So Mostert versus DK versus Pittman. I'm going to start Pittman for sure. So I have to start two of those three basically, and one of them has to be a receiver.
Right.
I mean, that's also kind of a good problem to have. I mean, it's okay as far as that goes. Let's do one more. The Cleveland running backs, Jerome, Ford, and as well as God, I'm so bad now. Yes, and Kareem Hunt. So I have Ford over Hunt this week, but it's really close, like 23 and 25 respectively.
Yeah, I might gap them a little more than that, but maybe have them like 10 spots apart or so. But I see Ford as like a flex, and Hunt I probably wouldn't really want to start this week. I have seen some sites put Ford ahead of some guys like Jaylen Warren, and I'm not really feeling that. Like Denver's got a good, like, not an amazing defense, but a good enough defense. I know they're easier to run on, but I don't know. Like the Browns offense with DTR, I don't know how much they're going to score in Denver this week. I could see Denver winning that game. So I don't feel great about Ford. Like, where I've seen him at sites, like I've seen like in some rankings him around Pacheco, around Jaylen Warren. I would rather start those other guys than Ford. I don't feel great about starting Browns this week. I sat all my Amari Coopers. I know we're not on receivers yet, but I'll kind of start Njoku, and that's it. I would mostly like to stay away from the Browns.
He had the 15 targets last week.
Yeah,
that was crazy. Someone cut Njoku in one of my leagues, and I need a tight end, but he's frozen for the rest of the week. I'm like, come on, it's killing me. It might be it's not the Mark Andrews league that I have. I don't think it is, at least, but it's frustrating. So moving on, because it's not all entirely about me, just partly about me. Let's move on to before this receivers, but before we do that, let's talk a little bit about Splash. RotoWire is proud to partner with Splash Sports for the 2023 fantasy football season. Splash Sports empowers gaming commissioners to earn by creating contests. Commissioners can set up contests, add their style, and enjoy the evolving Splash Sports platform for customized preferences. From daily to season-long contests, Splash Sports caters to various playing styles such as DFS, Pick X, and traditional Survivor. And unlike traditional sports books, Splash Sports pits you against friends and family, not the house. Splash goes beyond betting, a space where friends can connect, strategize, and share in the excitement of sports. RotoWire will be running weekly DFS tier contests on Splash Sports all season. Can you beat the RotoWire experts? Visit rotowire.com/splash to enter today. All right, you mentioned no Amari Cooper in your lineups. That's a good launching point there, Fred, for talking wide receivers.
Mhm.
I don't blame you. Dorian Thompson-Robinson is tough spot there. At Denver, who's quietly become a good defense again.
Absolutely. And right, and a good secondary and good at shutting down number one receivers. So and Cooper didn't do much against the Steelers last week with DTR in. So I with no buys this week, like I don't see me using him. I have a few Cooper shares because I really like the Browns offense going into the season when I thought Deshaun Watson was going to be healthy and pretty good, and they had Nick Chubb and all these other things. But now I think I'm going to try to keep Cooper out of my lineup most weeks, unless unless something clicks in the next few weeks and I can see something. But now I'm going to try to keep him out of my lineup. Like this week with no buys, I would, if I'm starting him, I don't know, my team's probably doesn't had a good season.
Yeah, it's tough because Cooper's a really good player too.
He is.
Yeah,
I like unless he lucks into a touch, I just don't see it. Like I think it'll be hard for him to get more than say like 50 yards.
Tyler Lockett or Amari Cooper?
Oh.
Did I hit the sweet spot of
Cooper? There you go, Cooper. Yeah.
Demario Douglas or Amari
because
Cooper.
At least they'll throw to Cooper a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
I'll take
Douglas and a quarterback to be named later versus Cooper.
Douglas. I think no matter who plays quarterback, they'll throw to Douglas.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Cooper, I'm afraid that DTR just may not, like he may be blanketed and they may just not really throw to him like they did last week. Just throw to Njoku. I don't know. Just don't throw much. I do think that New England will throw to Douglas.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I love Douglas for this week, but I do think New England will throw to him.
Does it matter to you who wins that job?
For Douglas, not really. Maybe I want Mac Jones just because Douglas was having some moments before, like maybe I don't know. No, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
How can I say I prefer Mac Jones at this point over anyone?
Right.
Yeah.
It's painful. It's really painful.
Yeah.
Mac Jones took first reps on Tuesday. Yay. That means nothing, by the way. It's just someone's got to go first, right?
Yeah.
I just don't think it matters that much. So we'll see. Other wide receivers want to talk about a little bit here. I was hoping that we're going to get Jameis Winston this week at quarterback for the Saints, but it looks like it's going to be Carr. He's trending in that direction, which means I have to move Chris Olave down. I feel like I do at least.
Yeah, although with Michael Thomas gone, maybe he'll funnel the ball a little more to Chris Olave. But yeah, I think Jameis would have been better. I don't know if he'd be better for winning the game, but I think he would be better for Chris Olave.
Yeah, that's I like the 30 for 30 Jameis from a fantasy standpoint, but there's a reason why the Bucs moved on from him.
Yeah,
because I mean, you get those turnovers are just killers. I get it there, but man, it's a killer when you can't go downfield either. And for the most part, it's got to be perfect for Carr to be able to go downfield. So that's why I just don't like it there.
Yeah.
Terry McLaurin, sneakily been a disappointment this year. Every week I look up and it's 5 for 48, 5 for 53.
Yep. I have a lot of him.
I have a lot of,
and they throw so much.
I know.
So it's not, the disappointment isn't that they don't score or they don't throw. They spread the ball around so much.
They do a lot of checkdowns too.
They do.
That's part of the problem.
Yeah, they do. And I'm going to give you like kind of a half-baked theory here, but I always felt like with Eric Bieniemy that the Chiefs also spread the ball around a ton. And we see the Dolphins funnel the ball to Tyreek Hill more than the Chiefs. The Chiefs use Tyreek Hill a lot, but like how good is Tyreek Hill? Like the Chiefs, even when they had Hill and Kelsey, they spread the ball around a ton. I think it might be a product of Bieniemy that Washington spreads the ball around a lot. But there's been games like where Sam Howell had ridiculous number of pass attempts and the target share for McLaurin's pretty low. This week, I have McLaurin on my bench in a lot of leagues. So he's even close to my. So I don't know if you made the playoffs in Scott Fishbowl, but I did,
I did
and
not.
I'm debating even in a league that's a really deep league with your starting lineup.
Mhm.
And like McLaurin is right on the cut line for me because I don't have much faith for him tomorrow against Dallas.
Yeah, so the guy I like for Washington tomorrow is Brian Robinson. I still
Right.
think that he's going to get a ton of catches again because there's no Antonio Gibson, and I think that's the big thing is all of a sudden they've discovered Brian Robinson can catch,
Yeah.
and the last 2 weeks he's just been going off. Yeah, that's pretty impressive that you have that deep of a squad that you can afford to bench McLaurin and
So it's
Fishbowl.
not even that deep actually. I'm just kind of down on him for this week. Like I'm considering I have Nico Collins ahead of him right now.
Oh yeah, me
And
too.
I thought about Josh Downs because I do agree with you that that Colts Bucks game may have a lot of scoring.
So I haven't moved Downs higher yet in my rankings because he was hurt going into the
Yep,
bye.
he was.
And I haven't seen an injury report on him. So, but I'm going to
Right.
probably put him in. It'll be in my top 40 for sure. But after that, I'm not sure. Like, what do you do with like George Pickens? Do we completely bury George Pickens now? Or is there hope now with an offensive coordinator change that he comes back to life? I mean, the problem is like you can say in theory, oh, you're never benching him, but these decisions matter.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely they matter. Um, no, I have George Pickens and Deontay Johnson out of my lineups everywhere this week. Like, let's see what it looks like with a new offensive coordinator. But with no buys this week, like I have better receiver options, I think, on every team. And I
Okay.
don't really need to use them. And Deontay Johnson's been really disappointing lately too.
Yeah.
So yeah, until I see some sort of spark from Kenny Pickett where I feel like he can get the ball to his wide receivers consistently. But like, remember back in the preseason when the Steelers were ripping it up and everybody was talking about how
Oh, yeah.
they had, and like Deontay Johnson, hugely disappointing. Pickens disappointing. Pat Fryermuth's been hurt a lot, but even when he was playing, like really just that whole passing game, just so disappointing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Jalen Warren is really good, and they need to give him the ball more.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Let's move on to tight ends. Because why not? It's super fun.
Yeah.
Actually, there's more viable tight ends than ever this year, I feel like lately. And it used to be such a wasteland. But
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
how big were you on the Isaiah Likely sweepstakes in your leagues?
So I won Isaiah Likely in a lot of leagues, but not with massive bids. Like in $1,000 fab leagues, I seem to win him a lot of leagues with like $20 to $40 bids.
Mm-hmm.
So he wasn't,
Wow.
yeah, he wasn't super sought after. And I wonder if that's the fact that it's late in the season. And then, like, as far as the fantasy regular season, and then tight end is a position where you either, like, I think a lot of teams maybe don't need one. So, like, there's enough teams that are like, oh, well, my tight end's Hawkinson. I don't really need a tight end, although he's going to have a bye, I guess, soon. But anyways, you get my point. Travis Kelsey, etc. But with Andrews going down, I thought at the very least the person who had Andrews would bid heavily on him. But maybe that person's kind of out of it. I don't. Who you never know.
Yeah.
But there's enough tight ends. Njoku's been good enough. Ferguson's been good enough. Kyle
The
Pitts has.
NFFC, I mean, no, that's like a windfall to get a guy like that.
Yeah,
You're either going, if you don't get Likely, you're moving down to Tyler Conklin.
yep,
Maybe Parham, if you're lucky, he's available. Parham would be good. He had a lot of targets last week. Of course, he also had a drop because he's a Charger, and that's what they do. But
right.
so I have two NFFC leagues. One, where I have Andrews, I won Likely 402 to 133. The other one where I have Pitts and other, it's not great. It'd still be good to pick him up. I bid 256 and lost big time. Someone went 555. Like,
Okay.
okay, tip my hat to you. Good job. You got him. But yeah, it's the NFFC, and it's just that waiver wire is just so depressing every week when
It is.
you're
Yeah,
hurting.
that's true. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And you have to go really aggressive on these guys, but you can only go really aggressive on so many guys, right? Over the course of the season, you don't have enough money to to go really aggressive and win that many guys. But yeah, but I did end up with Likely. Anyways, I ended up with some Likely shares. I don't think I'm trying not to use any Likely puns right now.
Yeah,
Um,
that's my job.
yeah, but I don't think that it's at all certain that he gets even half the targets that Andrews got. But I think it's certainly possible. And like you said, the tight end landscape is not totally depressing
Mhm.
this year, but but I still don't know if likely will be much of a solution.
Yeah. I think he'll be a solution. I think he's in that sort of, Parham, Njoku, if you're so lucky, but he's in that sort of range. Like, who am I thinking of? He's kind of, he's there, but
I think he's below. Well, right now, just the jury's out. Like he just hasn't.
Logan Thomas is in that range.
Logan Thomas, I think, is a good comparison. I kind of have him below in my mind, below Njoku, below Trey McBride, below Ferguson.
Oh, for sure.
Below Laporta. I think Logan Thomas is a good one. I have him below Kyle Pitts.
Yeah. I have Pitts all the way down at 15 this week. I have likely at 13, Pitts at 15. So I would start likely.
Yeah, they're probably in the same tier. Yeah. So that's where we have likely right now. But the interesting thing about likely is like he could go massively in one direction or another here in a week or two. Right? Like they keep the tight end really involved in the offense, and all of a sudden he's in the top 10 for sure going forward. Or they just switch their offense and don't throw to the tight ends much. And
OBJ just gets more targets. I know.
Things like that. Maybe they throw to the backs a little more. Who knows? But and then all of a sudden he's actually down with Ty Conklin, where you're like, hey, I just hope he catches like 3 passes.
Yeah. Tanner Hudson was mentioned in the comments. That's a desperation play. I'm in a league with 2 tight ends. I actually started him last week because I had Hunter Henry on bye. When Hunter Henry on bye forces you to causes action, you need to reconsider your life choices. But
yes, when you're saying, oh no, Hunter Henry's on a bye.
What am I going to do without Kyle Pitts this week?
I was there in some leagues actually last week, and you're right. I love how you mentioned Ty Conklin. To me, he is, and we see these in fantasy baseball a lot too. These guys who are constantly going on and off the waiver wire.
Yep.
He is that guy in all of my leagues.
100%.
Like where you can pick him up for $1 or $2 if you want to back up tight end, or if you're stuck. Nobody's excited about it. He's on the waiver wire. He's off the waiver wire. That guy to me this year is Ty Conklin.
He's if you're an Arrested Development fan, there's always money in the banana stand guy.
There you go.
He's always that guy. Let's hit through some of these Q&As before we take off here. I know Fred is donating a lung to the podcast, so we really appreciate that. Let's rip through a few of these. Hopefully we get to most of them. And if we don't, I apologize, but we can only go so long here. Start off with Jeff Rogers says, Saquon or Rachaad White? Who do you got?
I'll go. I guess Saquon.
Yeah, and I'm going one question per person, by the way, folks. Ask your best question.
Yeah, I'll go Saquon for sure. Okay, I got a little more confidence. I like Rachaad White, but I'll go Saquon.
I do too. Rachaad White's been good for us, but still running the ball is still a problem for the Bucs, and it's not on him. It might be on him a little bit. We'll never know. But I have Saquon too. Yeah. Let's go. We already asked Delegeezy's question there. Let's go ahead and do that. We did that already, so let's move on to the next one, and that it happens to be. All right, Rock Out says one flex, Javonte, Terry McLaurin, who we talked about, or Jaden Reed, full point PPR.
One flex, Javonte, McLaurin, Jaden Reed. I'm going to say Reed.
All right. I like it. I like the bold call. I'm going to go Javonte Williams, but I hate the matchup against the Browns. I just think the volume's going to be there.
Yeah.
And in a case like
that, the volume may not be there. The volume may not be there for Reed. I just have a feeling plenty of points are going to be scored in that first game tomorrow.
See, I don't. I think it's going to be. I think I would bet under on the Packers share, if you will.
Okay.
If you could do that.
So do you think the Lions are going to? So do you think the Lions are going to win that by a lot?
I think it's going to be like 24-9 or something like that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I think the Lions will get theirs. And then they'll put in
more like 31-20.
I just, the Packers are so banged up.
Yeah.
It's a short week.
Yep.
I think the Lions, they kind of got caught off guard by the Bears last week. They won't be this week.
Yeah.
Daniel says needs 2 wide receivers in a PPR league. Addison, Lockett, Deontay Johnson, Ridley, Reed, or Downs. A lot of names there. And I know you mentioned Downs earlier, someone you like. Do you like him enough to start him over the rest of this crew? I think we start Ridley. I'm going to stipulate the Ridley.
Agreed.
You get to pick one more from that bunch.
Right. So I'm not starting Lockett. I'm not starting Johnson. I don't feel great. Downs. Maybe I start Addison. Addison hasn't been good lately, but I think maybe I start Addison.
All right. That's strong endorsement from a strong man there, folks. All right. Let's go. Josh, who asked a question. Waddle, Warren, Derrick Henry, or Singleton as a flex. Has Mostert and Pacheco as his running backs already. So Jalen Waddle, Jalen Warren, Derrick Henry. God, Derrick Henry, we're asking about as a flex, and it's not even a slam dunk. What say you, Fred?
Yeah, actually, I'm not going to pick. I don't think I'm going to pick Henry. I think I'll pick Waddle.
Yeah, I'm going to go Henry because it's against the Panthers. If you can't get it done against the Panthers, forget about it.
True. Yeah.
But you know what? You might be right.
I'm a bit of a sucker for Waddle. I probably overrate him a bit. I'm going to pivot. Actually, I'm going to join you. Don't listen to me, Josh. I'm going to Henry. I think I've been overrating Waddle a little bit this season.
Yeah, he's again classic second receiver problem. Same thing happens with Higgins.
But I feel like second receiver against the Jets may work out. Like
right, because you don't get Sauce. Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe Sauce can't even handle Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, that's a good point. We'll see. RR Josiah says Eckler, JT, Dell, Kamara. Who sits from this one here? Eckler, Jonathan Taylor, Dell, and Kamara. One of them has to sit. Who is that man?
I'll sit Kamara.
All right. Daniel says, would you do AJ Brown for DK Metcalf and Chase? You're assuming you're trading away Brown for those two. Would you do that?
Yeah. It's so context dependent. Like I need to know who Daniel's other wide receiver is. Like if his other wide receiver is terrible, then I might. I know all the flaws with Chase now with Browning at quarterback and everything, but I would say mostly no. Okay. Like if I had an okay second receiver, then no. What about you? It's really how good do you think Chase can be the rest of the way?
Yeah, it really is all context dependent. It really is. That's the tough part there. I'm going to take the sucker's way out and say it's context dependent. Admiral Nita says start one: Cooper Kupp, Nico Collins, or Adam Thielen. Kupp. I don't know if Kupp plays this week or if he plays and is compromised. I mean, the good news is you don't have to make this decision by tonight. You can, or tomorrow even. You can wait till the weekend to have a better idea on that. Let's stipulate that Kupp is questionable but plays. Who are you starting?
I think I'll start him if he plays, and if he doesn't, I'll start Thielen.
All right, I might start Nico. I think this.
I thought about it. Yeah, Nico and Thielen's pretty close for me. Yeah, just with how well Tank Dell's been doing lately, like I don't know. It's just I'm not sure about the target share for Collins, but I don't mind him.
Lucky Leo asks Olave, Breece Hall, Javonte Williams, or Dell. Who sits in this bunch? He needs three. I think it's Javonte Williams. I want to get your opinion on that.
All right. Williams sits. Yeah.
Yeah. Just terrible matchup on that one there.
Yeah.
And that is going to be our final question of the day. Thank you, Leo. Thank you for everybody for sending in your questions. Thanks for listening live. Or wherever you get your podcasts after the fact. Thank you, Fred, for joining me. Really do appreciate it there. And get well and good luck the rest of the way in your leagues.
Yeah, thanks. You too.
All right. Thanks to Circa. Thanks to Splash Sports. We got John and Mario later this week. And, of course, our DFS pod on Friday. Thanks for listening. Take care.